What are your expectations for next season? What are your expectations for next season? It seems to me if the Niners had made the NFC Championship with Lance, everyone's expectations would be through the roof. Well, they're going to be the Super Bowl winner next year. They're going to be the Bengals next year. But it's murky now because they're going to have a new starter who started 3 games the last 2 years. So what are your expectations for next season?
Honestly, at this point, I don't have expectations. Like, you have to win the Super Bowl. You have to do this because I think there's a lot of offseason decisions that the 49ers need to make. And until they make those decisions, we don't know what kind of roster they have. We don't know how good their team's going to be and all of that. Then once we see that, I do think there's going to be growing pains with Trey Lance. I think as talented as he is, as good as his supporting cast is, all of those things might be true. I think there's still going to be growing pains because he's a young player. I mean, the only player I've ever seen that didn't really have growing pains is Patrick Mahomes. And even he had growing pains, but it's not really growing pains because he's throwing for 50 touchdowns.
And I expect to see him grow. Yeah. That's the whole thing. There's a payoff with the pain.
Yeah.
I expect to see him improve.
So because of that, I don't necessarily want to sit here and say now with Trey Lance, the next year they should go win the Super Bowl because Trey Lance might be playing with a much worse roster. Deebo Samuel might be injured for 6 games next year. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But, these type of things can happen, which totally changes the win and loss outlook of the 49ers, which is why I always say wins and losses are not a QB stat. It's not on the quarterback, right? When you go to Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard's record without Jimmy Garoppolo, you also have to talk about the fact that Nick Bosa didn't play last year. Deebo Samuel didn't play a lot of last year. George Kittle was hurt for a lot of last year. Some of those games, Ayuk was out. Some of those games, Trent Williams was out. So you have to talk about all those things when you're talking about wins and losses on the quarterback. Yeah. And to me, when you're talking about it with Trey Lance, that's why you can't say, oh, go win the Super Bowl. Oh, go win the NFC Championship game. To me, the expectations is, honestly, my one expectation is I walk out of the 2022-2023 football season, no matter how good the 49ers are, and I say, damn, they have a star at quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's the only expectation I have as a fan. I want to walk out of that season thinking, wow, Trey Lance is that guy. The way Chargers fans can feel about Justin Herbert. The way Bengals fans can feel about Joe Burrow, the way Bills fans can feel about Josh Allen. As a football fan and a fan of the San Francisco 49ers, that's all I want to feel. That's my only expectation coming out of 2022-2023. Because to me, with how good Shanahan is, how good some of the other players on the roster are, if he's that guy, things will fall into place by themselves.
I have extremely high expectations for this team. Maybe it's unreasonable. I know they're losing a lot of depth, and losing Tart, K1 could be tough, but I think the Niners have shown that they're very good at finding depth, whether it's late in the draft, the bargain bin of free agency. I mean, depth usually isn't their problem, and they still have the core of their team intact, and they're actually going to get their best quarterback on the field next year. I'm incredibly optimistic for this team next season. Also, I want to say I think Brandon Ayuk's going to have a big year next year. The whole Brandon Ayuk saga this year doesn't make sense to me. He was pretty much put in the doghouse for half the season. The Niners never really communicated why. First, they said he's not in the doghouse. Then they said he's out of the doghouse, and it's because he's doing something better, but we don't really want to say what, practicing, running harder. They never really said it. And to me, when he got the ball, he was good. I think Trey Lance is going to target him a lot more because although Ayuk isn't a 4-3, 4-4 guy, he does most of his work down the field. He runs a lot of double moves. He needs a quarterback who wants to hold the ball a little bit longer and push it down the field. And now he's got one. So I think Ayuk entering year 3, kind of like Deebo this year, is going to have a lot to prove in a quarterback who wants to get in the ball. Ayuk.
I mean, the Niners have had a year 3 star just about every season. Fred Warner was a year 3 star last year. Deebo was a year 3. I don't think it might be Ayuk. It could be Ayuk.
Who else could it be? Jennings? Could be Jennings. Jennings is
they only drafted 4 players. It could be McKivitz.
Check on 3rd and 10 where he caught it 2 yards in front of it and then powered pass for another.
Yeah, that was a big play in that game.
That was a huge play in a playoff game. That guy's good. So I have high expectations for this team. Is stacked. I mean, I guess we both expect a little bit of regression from Deebo Samuel because he doesn't have that got to get the contract push anymore. But still, I expect.
I just expect that regression because he had one of the great seasons we've seen in a long time. Yeah.
I expect a bounce back year from Kittle. I expect a Pro Bowl season from Kittle. I mean, Armstead had a down game yesterday, but I expect him to pick up where he left off.
Yeah, I expect him to continue to dominate. Yeah.
This team should be really good.
I agree. This team is really good, but again, to me, when we're talking about how far they can go, and I think that's where the conversation happens when we talk about wins and losses. Those are the subtle things that make the difference, because it is a big difference to me if you're starting Hufanga at safety for 17 games instead of Tart. It's a big difference to me. So I think we'll have to see what happens. But honestly, I'm with you, Grant. They have some players that are truly, forget the quarterback for a second. Deebo Samuel is truly one of the better players in the NFL. Nick Bosa is that. Trent Williams is that. Fred Warner is absolutely that. George Kittle is that. Ayuk is maybe the best third option on an offense in the entire NFL.
And I think he's got upside. I still think he has upside.
And the Chiefs offense, they're missing one thing, right? They're missing what Sammy Watkins was supposed to be, because they have Hill and Kelsey. They don't have that third guy. The Niners have their Hill and Kelsey, and they have that third guy too.
They do.
So it's spectacular across the board. We'll just see what happens.
We'll see.